her name was Blood Lily. With 2 L's. Not Blood Lily with 1 L. She's no flower. And definitely not Blood Lolly. That almost happened. Blood Lily. Tristram, it called her. The town reeked of desperation and death. And where there was need, there was opportunity. The kind of opportunity for a rogue to make her name. And her fortune. Blood Lily's adventure had begun. She casually strolled through town. Upon reaching the stairs down to engage the forces of evil, she was suddenly called back. Determined, she tried again, but was thwarted a second time. Now, slightly annoyed, Blood Lily finally came across a wounded man outside the cathedral who informed her of the butcher. While she promptly walked away from the man to begin her adventure, she could almost hear a voice insisting, "There must be a butcher," whatever that was. Having found her way into the darkness, she immediately had the problem of not being able to find the door. But once she found her way, first blood was spilled. Well, not literally. It was a skeleton. But you know what I mean. As a rogue, Blood Lily was enticed by treasure. Even a clearly trapped chest didn't stop her from needing to know what was inside. In the creepy darkness, the mood became even more ominous when a loud, smooth, and clear tune rumbled through the stone hall. It almost sounded like a vinyl record being played. Blood Lily didn't question where it came from, but gripped her bow all the more tightly with increased vigor. She burst into a room, putting an arrow right into the head of the first demon inside. After making quick work of the wretched creatures, she searched for useful items. In the darkness, it was very difficult to tell things apart, but with a keen ear located a special potion to pocket for later. Coming back to town for provisions, Blood Lily approached the town healer. He immediately started blathering about the poison water supply, but she cut him off, dismissing the water crisis and demanding healing. Back in the dungeon, Blood Lily encountered a closet full of barrels. Who knows what goodies someone hid in there, but as soon as she opened one, the whole lot exploded in her face. Typical. Blood Lily grinned as she saw a barred window to shoot through. The dumb, dead bones on the other side repeatedly being shattered by her broadheads. Once the coast was clear, she opened the door only to discover the undead horde still bloodthirsty on the other side. Being a stingy rogue, Blood Lily didn't want to waste a town portal scroll, and instead proceeded to journey up through the body-littered halls to the surface. All the while thinking to herself how cute she would look pulling arrows from demons' heads in her new magical armor. After selling goods, Blood Lily did show care to the locals by stopping to hear the plight of one of the commoners, but she couldn't help but feel like it was a distraction while someone got a drink of water. She continued her journey into the darkness, but stopped in her tracks when a funky beat started up. All the way up from on the surface, she could hear a rap from Deckard Cain, full with a chorus of "Stay a while and listen." What is wrong with this town? By great fortune, Blood Lily found a new longbow. She imbued it with sharpening oil. Using keener arrows, she proceeded to mow down hordes of skeletons. One thing that kept annoying her was the subtle ticking she kept hearing in her head. Would it ever stop? Spoiler alert, it won't. It's just that kind of game. Blood Lily valiantly fought her first elite band of evil creatures. As a reward for her victory, she found a sexy robe. Looking good, little lady. Oh, what a find! A nice jail cell full of zombies and decapitated bodies. Naturally, Blood Lily felt the need to check out each one of these headless corpses. That's kind of weird. But hey, score! Each had gold. Next, Blood Lily encountered a room with burning stakes. The flame animation was mesmerizing, at least until hordes of zombies closed in from all sides, devilishly ignorant of the hellfire licking them. Utilizing the successful strategy of shooting through jail bars, she was effortlessly mowing down more skeletons than what should come up to kiss her, but a blinking imp. That teleporting son of a... Having grown stronger, it was time. Time to avenge the townsfolk by confronting the butcher. Upon cautiously opening the door to his room, the butcher declared, "Fresh meat." Blood Lily narrowly dodged his giant cleaver as she ran from room to room with him closing behind. One final shot between the eyes felled the great beast. He was no match for her swiftness. But the ease of the kill almost felt, well, anticlimactic. He was certainly not the boogeyman the residents of Tristram had blown him up to be. Afterwards, curiosity got the better of her. She had to go back to investigate his lair. The smell of putrid flesh clogged her nostrils as she took in the atrocities within. Blood Lily made special note of his interior decorating style, mostly what not to do. Going further down, Blood Lily found an ornate book on a pedestal. Once she started reading, she couldn't help but keep going. It was such a good read that she completely ignored the fiend chewing on her leg the whole time. Nothing like cuddling up with a good book about satanic history. On her way back into town, she swung by to introduce herself to Farnham and Griswold. The former was in a drunken stupor, and the latter talked in such an excitable accent, it would grate on any adventurer. After picking up the butcher's giant cleaver, she thought about giving it a swing. Literally. However, the first time getting surrounded by flying demons, she quickly discovered that her trusty bow was the only way to go. She approached a large room and heard a loud clatter of feet and claws. A whole pack of fiends was closing in. Thinking fast, Blood Lily read from a scroll to cast a wall of fire between her and the incoming wave. Many of the creatures were consumed by the brilliant flames, but those which came through were even more determined to consume her flesh. She then went up to a herd of cows and insisted on petting each and every one of them. Because, why not? Maybe this Blood Lily isn't as bloodthirsty as she'd like us to think. After going on an errand for a particular stone, Griswold made it into a fancy ring with magical powers. His voice may be obnoxious, but he knows what a girl wants. While venturing deeper, Blood Lily suddenly felt an arrow graze her face. Incoming fire from freak goatmen! She returned a volley to slay the enemies. Who's the better archer now? As Blood Lily constantly sought treasure, one chest she opened contained an ancient tome with charred pages. A grand grin crept across her face as she took in the knowledge it contained, to be able to cast a burning wall of flame. She found a staff crackling with static. Well, surely this could be useful against the hordes of evil. Upon trying it, the vibrant columns of lightning it emitted bounced against the stone walls, zapping the baddies, but also searing her own nerves in great pain. Having done lots of adventuring up to this point, she found that there's just too many neat things to carry around, and she became overburdened. Setting Deckard Cain as sentinel, she began using the entire town square as her personal stash. Piles of items littered all over the ground. The dungeon she returned to was littered with shrines set up by the Goatmen. Blood Lily burst upon these altars, flinging arrows and massacring fiendish congregants. But it didn't take long before the monsters caught on and overwhelmed her with their numbers. She stumbled on her escape, unable to reach the life-giving potion on the back of her belt, when suddenly a goat axe struck her with a mortal blow. Bleeding Lily looked through dim eyes as the grotesque figures walked away in triumph. Her life was slipping away. Was this how her journey ends? From the black, she suddenly felt fuzzy. As her eyes returned to focus, she was again in the dim light of the dungeon. How convenient. With renewed determination, Blood Lily ventured into the depths again. Smarter from her experience, she put her firewall spells to good use, setting an entire room on fire to incinerate the devils within. She could smell the charred hides and hear the otherworldly howls as they burned. What a great day for a barbecue. Blood Lily approached yet another goat shrine, peering into the mystery of this one's pool. She dared reach in her hand and heard a riddle in her head. Riches abound where least expected. She suddenly felt her backpack fill, and upon looking inside, it was packed with gold. What luck! Hopefully the gold's not cursed. A group of mud demons shambled towards Blood Lily as she unleashed a piercing volley. Having felled the grimy giants, she heard a clink on the pebbled floor. Wincing, the rogue pulled a soiled necklace from a pile of goo. Her first magic amulet! Screw walking, we are going back to town right now. Deckard is totally going to have to identify this. It's going to look so good on me, she thought to herself. While in town, it was time to catch up with the residents. Most importantly, Blood Lily felt compelled to provide a welfare check on poor Farnham. He was his usual inebriated self. She then hit up each person to hear their plight and gain insight into the next hellish place she was to adventure. However, her real motive was to show off her new, gleaming amulet to everyone. But no one even noticed to comment. Those chumps. Well, at least Deckard didn't burst into song this time. Of course, Blood Lily had to visit the cows. While there, the farmer had a strange request to use a rune on a growth in the ground. A menacing voice from within the resulting pit dripped with hunger, so she climbed back out of that pit in a hurry. Blood Lily somehow knew in the back of her head that she would return here for the expansion content. Blood Lily opened the door to a library with a robed figure standing in the center. She found some new spellbooks and learned how to use her spirit force for healing and deflecting incoming attacks. She couldn't help but pull another tome from a special bookcase. As soon as Blood Lily grabbed the moldy cover, the strange mage's concentration was broken, and he realized the rogue was here to steal his magical secrets. He launched fireballs across the room, but she easily felled him. "Put it on my library card," she uttered over her shoulder upon leaving the looted room. Descending another spiral staircase, Blood Lily bottomed out from the catacombs to a subterranean hellscape. The atmosphere was hot, with the strong smell of sulfur, and the darkness was illuminated by standing pools of molten lava. In case those cues weren't obvious enough, she said, "It's hot down here," to the folks watching at home. The hellspawn in these depths were particularly vicious. Monsters made of stone and fire assaulted her from every direction, throwing balls of lava from each dark passage. It was like a fun snowball fight. If snowball fights were a deadly conflagration of suffering. Her trusty bow was becoming worn and lacked the power to swiftly bring down the stronger foes she now encountered. With enough practice, Blood Lily was finally ready to use the heavier bow she'd been saving for just this occasion. Now she could really mess up those lava lords. As Blood Lily turned a corner in the stagnant cave, she came across a pack of horned demons. Having learned from some earlier mistakes, she boxed the abominations between walls of fire, eventually creating an entire blanket of flames. As the beasts cooked in her makeshift oven, she skewered their skulls with swift broadheads. Fortunately for our hero, the legions of evil are often just plain dumb. Using the rivers of lava to her advantage, she shot across the divides to slay the beasts on the other side as they angrily paced. Good thing the pathfinding code is from the 1990s. A large chest sat gleaming in the glow of orange lava. As Blood Lily approached to open the juicy contents within, a wave of toxic sludge emitted from the darkness beyond. She finally managed to make an unseemly number of fried frog legs with a crisscross of fireballs. Back in town, Blood Lily felt compelled to pet the cows for this play session. It was the rule. Deeper in the caves, she encountered stone gargoyles. Blood Lily avoided their strong, cold talons by shooting arrows across the lava pools. Only trouble is, they would not stay still. Her biceps are gonna be burning tomorrow. Blood Lily found a set of heavy armor and donned it for the vastly increased protection. This one was different and actually changed her appearance. She was pleased to finally be going up against the denizens of hell, no longer merely clad in just her scant underwear. Going deeper still, Blood Lily heard the metallic clangs of heavy armor and saw tall, menacing warriors approaching. The Death Knights were strong, closing fast, and swinging huge swords with unholy vengeance. With each she felled by her bow, it was highly satisfying. They seriously have the best death animation of all the enemies she had faced. Blood Lily reached the gates of the hellish domain. Before confronting Diablo himself, she decided to gain more treasure by helping the townsfolk with other errands in the hive pit that she opened earlier. The floor of the nest pit was soft and moist, almost as if the whole environment was alive. On top of that were the mutated monsters within. Ugh, simply creepy. She came across batches of slimy pods. What were these for? Blood Lily skewered one open, and it burst with green goop all over her leather armor. Ew. But hey, one of them had a fancy ring in it. What, or who, was consumed in this growth such that all that remained was this ring? Blood Lily had to go pet the cows for the day. Okay, I'm seriously getting worried about her. Am I the only one who's concerned with the cow petting? Having just acquired a new magic ring, she was able to learn more magical secrets. Blood Lily approached the witch Adria and demanded, "Show me your books." And now there are giant man-eating spiders? Nope. Nope, 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 nope. So done with this area. Everything in here is absolutely putrid. The rogue continued to increase in wealth. Somehow the townsfolk who can't even keep a supply of potable drinking water can offer tens of thousands of gold pieces for all kinds of amazing magical goods. So much so that Blood Lily was weighed down with coin and treasure. She decided to have the townsfolk watch her cash. In particular, she chose drunk Farnham as the keeper of her huge stacks of gold. Okay, stop. We all should be really concerned right now about her poor decision-making at this point. The stench of the stagnant hive grew stronger as she descended. The creatures became more warped and grotesque. Blood Lily rounded a greasy corner, and a mighty rustling approached from the bowels of the chamber ahead. With it, the shrill voice of a vile creature announced the rogue's doom. The mighty defiler towered over Blood Lily as it closed quickly on top of her. She narrowly dodged bladed appendages as she dashed backwards across the living terrain, firing arrow after arrow, many of which simply ricocheted off the abomination's carapace. Frantic, our hero summoned walls of vibrant flame to block the incoming beast, only for it to charge forward through the fire with its maw wide open. The fight seemed nearly lost as Blood Lily realized she had only empty healing flasks on her sash. She used her superior dexterity to fire an arrow precisely down the giant creature's throat as it lunged to devour her. She sprang and rolled through the grime just in time as the defiler crashed to the floor, slain. What's this? From the lair of the defiler, Blood Lily discovered a map of Tristram. Upon reaching the surface again, she breathed a deep breath of fresh air and hurried to the cathedral cemetery, right where the map pointed. Blood Lily found the giant gravestone marked on the map, which revealed a secret entrance to an underground crypt. The stone walls were cold, like death, and the atmosphere was eerie, but under the floors surged a dark power. She soon found the undead inside, skeletal beasts and infernal liches. Blood Lily put her gymnastics to the test to dodge the barrage of explosive fireballs from the demonic welcoming party. Blood Lily kept stumbling across new suits of armor. It was almost as if the universe was telling her to put some pants on. She picked them up, looked around to make sure nobody was nearby, and then proceeded to get changed over the remains of charred lich bones. Fashion show in an evil burial chamber. The rogue began to find journals left behind from the master of this old tomb. The author warned of a growing evil infesting his every thought. He couldn't stop hearing the wretched name, Na Cruel. If that doesn't sound like a perfect name for a demonic villain, then I don't know what is. Slaying hordes of abominations can have a strange effect on mortal minds. Now Blood Lily is attempting to juggle with her healing potions. I'm not going to be the one to tell her how bad she is at it. Blood Lily bought a book of telekinesis to learn this useful spell. Now trapped chests are less dangerous because she can just simply open them from a safe distance away. Deeper into the crypt, Blood Lily encountered even more powerful undead. These liches drew upon the increased intensity of unholy power in this place, and the rogue was quickly overwhelmed. No matter how hard she tried, the forces of evil seemed to always have the upper hand. If at first you don't succeed, maybe it's time to try leaving to fight another day. Blood Lily needed a more powerful weapon to fell these infernal demons. She browsed Griswold's wares, and a quiver caught her eye, which had arrowheads gleaming with otherworldly sheen. This incredible bow's materials were guaranteed to pierce even the toughest armor. Like it was butter. Sold! Returning to her main quest, Blood Lily entered a fissure in the ground and descended into hell. Apparently the butcher got his interior decorating advice from Diablo himself. These scattered, impaled bodies don't exactly exude hospitality. Blood Lily unlocked the lair of the Warlord of Blood. The vicious Knight of Evil and his entire troop poured out into the halls to confront the rogue. Blood Lily's arrows flew true and left each in a fiery heap. The Warlord swung his greatsword with crashing blows, but he was no match for our hero's swiftness. He did leave his collection of magical weapons and armor, which were worth a small fortune, but not a single bow to be found. I am relieved. Blood Lily finally has come to her senses and stopped leaving her wealth of gold in a heap with the First Bank of Farnham. Instead, she's stashing it by the more reputable Griswold. I'm slightly less worried now, but we still have to work on that cow thing. After ignoring the commoner's plight all this time, Blood Lily finally brought herself to search for the source of the tainted water supply. All the way back on level 2. The dark spawn in this hidden underground stream were weak. She hardly had to knock an arrow, and they keeled over in fright. It felt good to be a badass for a little while. Blood Lily approached the healer Pepin, and received a fancy ring as the reward for her services. She wanted to put it on, but was annoyed at how she only had 2 fingers. Wait, what? I guess not everything in this game has to make sense. Further into Hell's domain, Blood Lily began to hear slithering across the bone-littered floors, and she was assaulted by enormous serpent warriors wielding swords. They moved swiftly and closed in, slithering up the walls to narrow her escape. In the end, she had to use brilliant walls of lightning to corral the brood of snakes into her kill zone. Blood Lily also had to dodge barrages of magical projectiles from demon witches. Each time she felled one, she winced at their shriek, wondering if she herself had been killed. The voices sounded just so familiar. Also, they need to put some clothes on. There can only be one scantily clad lady in these here parts. The rogue happened upon a stiff bow of war. She could hardly even pull it back. When talking with Pepin about her problem, he offered her a concoction of his own creation, guaranteed to improve her strength. Blood Lily skeptically sniffed the cloudy brew, then chugged it. Her biceps tingled, and she effortlessly drew back her new bow. Those hell-spawn won't even know what hit them. After battling harems of succubi, Blood Lily made her way to a brutalized chamber littered with human sacrifices. In the center was a corrupted staff the rogue couldn't help but be curious enough to take with her. In the next room, she found the satanic symbol marking the gate to Diablo's realm. Understandably, our hero had a little panic attack and bravely ran in the other direction. When presented with the Staff of Lazarus, Deckard Cain couldn't help but blather on and on about the king's missing son and the treachery of the Archbishop Lazarus. Ugh, what a sob story. Looks like it's Blood Lily to the rescue again. But first, petting the cows. Again. You know, maybe there's something that she knows that we don't. Maybe it's therapeutic. If it makes you happy, go for it. You do you, Blood Lily. You do you. Blood Lily decided to return to the unholy crypt to confront the evil which overpowered her earlier. She couldn't help but feel like her journey was soon coming to a close. The final boss is so near. Might be only a few play sessions at most. The enemies within were still brutally powerful. Blood Lily employed tactics such as firing arrows from cover and slaughtering the poor slobs stuck on the other side of open gratings. Despite her best efforts, she was still quickly becoming a health potion addict. The rogue was browsing the book selection at Adria's when she kept phasing in and out of the world. Every time she went to pull a tome from the witch's ramshackle shelves, Blood Lily was annoyingly shifted outside again. Whoever keeps doing that is gonna get an arrow in the butt if they don't stop it right now. Reaching the basement of the gravesite, Blood Lily encountered new forms of grotesque monsters. Some unusual things shambled towards our hero. These fleshy things had no intelligible form, and are clearly evidence Diablo outsourced demon designs to Picasso here. As intimidating as their unblinking eye and scorpion appendage are, all of that was undone by the begging kitten sound they constantly emit. Her growing repertoire of spells was paying off. Another trapped chest which would have resulted in an arrow in her back was easily sprung safely using telekinesis. Blood Lily found a blood-stained scroll inscribed by the mage whose journals she kept finding in the depths. It made one final plea to stop Not Cruel, but taking care not to break his arcane binding spell. The rogue found scraps of parchment with Latin inscriptions in her backpack, and puzzled over how to arrange the incantations to properly expose the evil creature. Upon her successful chanting, the giant abomination emerged from his prison den and stormed at Blood Lily in a rage. Though he struck at her with unholy strength, he was slowed and vulnerable by the mage's binding spell. She summoned her magical abilities and blew a cone of flames at the bloody monster as he approached. The inferno consumed the beast, and he melted into a puddle of blood. Pwned! Having completed the areas in the Hellfire expansion, our hero visited the pasture outside Tristram to blow off some stress, petting cows. She then went around the town, asking the residents who was going to give her a prize for clearing the crypt. No one piped up. Oh well, kicking that boss's demonic ass was satisfaction enough. Before finishing her business in Tristram, Blood Lily couldn't stand not completing every single task she'd been given. What can I say? Our girl's a completionist. After waiting for ages, that craven goat man, Garbod the Weak, finally had a magic item to give Blood Lily, only for him to renege on the deal. The rogue scowled and launched a swift volley as the beast swung his mace. Garbod immediately fell as Blood Lily chided, "I'm not impressed." The next task was to find the Anvil of Fury. She had no idea where to go, but fortunately, the trusty strategy guide said it was on level 10. Down the winding spiral brick staircases she trod, with that suffocating smell of sulfur wafting from the bottom as the stairs emptied into the molten rivers. The crumbled ruins of the lava monsters were still strewn where they were killed from earlier, now cooled into piles of regular stone. There, on a peninsula outcropping, lay the Anvil of Fury, left behind in the ashes of a previous altercation. Blood Lily brought the anvil to Griswold. But what did he make with its demonic power? A sword? The rogue became furious. Does this oaf not clearly see that she was holding a bow, and has held a bow literally every time she came by his shop? And to add insult to injury, he didn't even know what his stupid sword did. She had to walk all the way back to Kane to have it identified. What a total scam. At least Griswold would buy back his garbage sword for 10,000 gold. Our hero then discovered the Chamber of Bone. The rattle of skeletons could be heard echoing through the dark halls. Blood Lily opened the wooden door at the center of the chamber, and a flood of skeletons poured out at her. At this point, she had so much experience in knocking skulls that mowing down the undead horde was a piece of cake. She admired her handiwork, bones crunching under her feet with every step. The side rooms were full of treasure chests. Certainly not a waste of time for our greedy rogue. Ready now to tackle the root of all the evil, Blood Lily casually strolled through hell again and approached a menacing red portal to the lair of Archbishop Lazarus. After clearing the Archbishop's lair, she approached his central chamber. Blood Lily was too late. The Prince Albrecht lay slain on the sacrificial altar, and the Archbishop Lazarus maniacally pronounced the futility of the rogue's quest. Apparently, his words cut her deep, since she proceeded to simply sit at the entrance and get fireballed to death. Being smarter on a subsequent attempt, she juked the magic orbs and traded fireballs for arrows with the Archbishop until the fallen priest was put out of his misery. Before entering Diablo's lair, Blood Lily needed to manage her huge wealth, so she sold some extra goods and stocked up on health potions. She had amassed quite the pile of gold in front of Griswold's shop. Let's hope he's trustworthy enough not to dip into it for beer money. Blood Lily knew she was close to the Lord of Terror, and that she needed every advantage she could get to purge the evil from this realm. So she proceeded to buy a collection of brews guaranteed to improve her physiology. Blah. Would it have killed them to add some honey or something? The hellish domain was infested with fire-casting mages. Merely stepping into a large room had Blood Lily doing acrobatics to dodge a crossfire of fireballs.
The rogue managed to get an elite armored fiend on his own and fired keen arrows as she fled his sword's reach. The unholy warrior dropped with a clatter, and Blood Lily picked up his magical bastard sword. "I'll take this and sell it, you bastard," she chuckled to herself. While up in town managing her inventory, she could hardly concentrate on what goods to buy because the whole Tristram Square was blasting Kane's bizarre rap. Look, if I have to hear him rap Herodrim one more time, I'm gonna quit this narration. To unlock deeper into Diablo's lair, Blood Lily had to locate grotesque switches made of bones. She hesitantly grabbed the giant femur and shoved it to one side. She was getting closer to her goal. The towering Blood Knights stormed her around every corner, but she was learning their weaknesses and where to place her arrows such that entire legions of them fell before they could even get within striking range. Oh, stress relief time. Gotta pet the cows before the showdown. Wouldn't it be nice if there were an entire level of just cows? It was time to finally awaken Diablo's inner sanctum. She cautiously approached and cast her Summon Guardian. This totally upset the greater evil, and he proceeded to immolate her with his demonic flames. This was going to be harder than she thought. Desperate to get an edge against her satanic foe, it was time to consult the strategy guide on how to bind spells to special keys. How is it, after all this time diving into the depths of hell, that nobody told Blood Lily how to do it? Seriously, people, come on. Time after time, our hero entered her portal to return to Diablo's sanctum, armed with her swift bow and a sash full of potions. Each time narrowly escaping back through her portal with an empty belt and a buzz from repeated painkillers. Blood Lily had to sell her entire stash of treasure. Magical rings and arcane trinkets all had to go to fund her fight against Diablo. Those health potions weren't going to buy themselves. On the plus side, the streets of Tristram never looked so clean. Blood Lily's armor was showing serious signs of wear. How was a girl supposed to look good in tattered threads? Griswold was making a fortune patching her gear. Maybe she could get a friends and family discount? I mean, seeing as she's going to purge the demon presence from the town. Blood Lily was growing weary. Were her broadheads even doing anything, or simply sticking into his scaly hide? The massive demon found her from around cover yet again, and the rogue ignored the licking flames for a moment to aim precisely at the crevice in his breastbone. The arrow plunged into the demon's chest with a cascade of force. From the weakened cavity, immediately an intense gush of blood sprayed across the ashen floor, spattering Blood Lily. Diablo writhed in unholy agony until he fell still. Our hero felt compelled to pry the stone from the beast's head, and immediately the body shriveled into the form of a human. What infernal ritual was this? It was too late. Blood Lily could already feel her own arm slamming the pointed gem into her forehead. The essence of Diablo was contained. For now.
I've done things you can't believe. It makes your nightmares look like dreams. Yeah, you should be scared of me. So cold from one look in my eyes. So you wanna rule the heavens, but you're human tonight.
There's something familiar about this place. The smell of death surrounds me.